My name is Andrew Eccles. I'm the co-executive director with the Every Voice Coalition. Every Voice is a partner with the Lab Learning Action Buffet, and today I'm a guest interviewer with the Lab's Radio Hour. Content warning, we will be discussing campus sexual violence and its impacts on our community. We will not be sharing any descriptions of violence or specific experiences. We encourage our listeners to do what they need to take care of themselves, as this topic may be triggering or activating. If you or someone you love needs support, consider visiting lapignon.org or calling their 24-hour crisis hotline at 575-526-3437. Thank you, Emily, for agreeing to be interviewed as a part of the Lab's Youth Voice Matters project. The main purpose of this project is to elevate youth voices in Southern New Mexico in addressing important topics regionally as well as nationally. So how about if we dive right in?
Sounds great. I can't wait.
Cool. Well, first of all, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your identity, where you were born, grew up, anything else you feel like sharing?
Absolutely. So my name is Emily. I use she, her pronouns. I grew up in a really small town in upstate New York called Corning, but came to college. I went to the University of New Mexico, which is what eventually got me involved in my work with Every Voice. I was super involved when I was on campus, founding student organizations, involved in student government. And these days you can find me in Denver, Colorado. I work remotely, so I'm bit bopping around the country, but very grounded in the work that Every Voice is doing and super excited to be a part of this work and excited to share more information about it with you all today.
That's awesome. I would love to know a little bit more just about what you do with Every Voice. How did you find EVC? What does a day in the life of Emily with the Every Voice Coalition look like?
Absolutely. Yeah. So in the summer of 2020, a very interesting time for us all, I got an email from a stranger named Kate, and she asked me if I would be interested in learning more about a nonprofit that had to do with passing legislation about sexual violence on college campuses. And immediately I was excited about it. She found me because I had founded a student organization on campus called Women in Management and thought that, my values and interests might align with Every Voice's work. And from there, I've become a co-state director in New Mexico. So I help organize our legislation. And so as a co-state director, I'm helping gather volunteers and people who are also passionate about this topic so that we can amplify student voices and make sure that students are represented in the legislature and through legislation.
That is absolutely fantastic. I'm curious to know, what have you learned during your time with the Every Voice Coalition?
Oh, yeah. So I think what's super cool about this work is that it's amazing how little we know about the legislative process. I don't know if everyone will relate to this, but for me, School of Rock, how a bill passes is like the only knowledge that I know. I have this memory of a little cartoon bill walking through the different houses and getting passed in legislation. And so learning about specifically New Mexico's procedure and how that process works has been really informative. Getting more information about how to reach out to your legislators, how important it is to advocate for things that you want to see. I think that a lot of times we just assume that our legislators have our best interests in mind, but they really do want to hear from their constituents. So it's important to use that outlet and talk with them. And then just on a personal note, it's been really empowering getting involved in this work and seeing all the people that are also passionate about sexual violence and how to prevent it and better support survivors, and just the different communities that also intertwines with our work. It's a really, really cool community to be a part of. I always look forward to our national calls where we get to see what everybody else is up to. And I also think that Every Voice has really highlighted for me in my daily life to celebrate the little wins. Legislative work can be exhausting and there's a lot of things that go into it day in and day out, but celebrating those wins, I made 3 phone calls and I talked to 2 legislators, or I gave testimony and I feel really good about it. Or even just I held a steering committee today and I created community for people who just wanted to share about their week and do a BuzzFeed quiz. I think that it's really important to take full account of how beautiful this work is in connecting us all. So I've learned a lot. It's been a really lovely almost 3 years, which is wild to say. I swear COVID has completely distorted my sense of time, but yeah, 3 lovely years of meeting with different students and young alums around the country who are also passionate about similar things.
Emily, that was so beautiful. And I think you really speak to how important it is to prioritize community care. As we celebrate these little wins, as we just hold space for each other, to be our full selves as both advocates and also just people. It's really important. And I think it is a testament to why we're able to get this work done. So I have another question for you. Every Voice has been described as an organization that puts students in the driver's seat. How have you been in the driver's seat of this work, and how has that impacted the movement as a whole?
Yeah, so I think that's my favorite part about Every Voice is that it's a student and young alum led initiative. So this work can really look however we think will be the most successful, right? We can try different things, see if it works, see if there's maybe better options for pursuing different initiatives and, bouncing ideas off of each other. I love those national connects because we get to hear what other teams are doing in different places. And not one shoe fits all with legislative work when we're going state by state. Every process is super different. So it's so interesting to have the ability to navigate that as young people who are newer to the legislative process. And I also think it's really beautiful because, like we were mentioning before, creating community and there's a mutual understanding that everybody is giving their best at all times. So if they reach out and say, I had a really stressful day, I just don't have it in me to come to meeting today and give it my all, I'll catch you next week. No questions asked. We're going to support you. We're going to see if you need any help and we'll catch you next week. And that is something that I didn't find at work. So finding it in this organization was so refreshing. And I've since left that job. Now I'm getting on a tangent that doesn't matter. So didn't have that at work. Super refreshing. And so being in the driver's seat really gives us the opportunity to work at our capacity with the best intentions to get our work done and to be really creative about it. I love building community and hearing from everybody else and just piecing together something that has the same goal in front of us with so many different ways to achieve that goal.
That's awesome. I love that. And, another thing I will just jump in and say that Senator Melanie Scheibel, she recently mentioned that Every Voice leaders that she has worked with were among the most prepared, really ready to lead the advocacy more so than quote unquote real adults who, their full-time job is lobbying and advocating for legislation. Our students, we know what we're doing and we are experts in this work because our lived experience has really given us the knowledge of what the problems are, and we know what we need to be able to fix the problems. And what I will also say too is in the years that we've worked together, Emily, I have seen you in the driver's seat on so many occasions, spearheading, legislative strategy, advocacy, getting, knee deep in bill language and going line by line to find the perfect words for our legislation. And it's so impactful just seeing, our peers being in the driver's seat as well. I don't know about you, but I think it makes the work feel a little bit less scary.
Definitely. And I think that the note that legislator mentioned is so true because this work is opt-in. Like we're here because we really care about this topic and we really want to make a difference for future generations. And so we come prepared because we care about it. We don't have ulterior motives. We're not getting paid. It's simply because we have the expertise, like you said, and having the space to amplify our voices and really be heard is something that I wish was done more for students. And so hopefully this becomes a wave of student-led advocacy movements to really make sure that students are supported in the ways that they need the most. It's really been such an exciting thing to be a part of.
I could not agree more. Well, I guess tacking onto that just a little bit, do you have any recommendations for people who are making decisions that affect you and those who are close to you?
Yeah. I mean, I think more than anything, just normalizing these conversations, right? National statistics say 1 in 10 students will experience sexual violence during their time on campus. So that means for New Mexico alone, 14,000 students will experience sexual violence this year. That number is too many. And normalizing the conversation, making sure that students know what the resources are on their campuses and ensuring that all campuses have the same resources is why I'm super passionate about this work. UNM has a lot of resources that this bill encompasses and future initiatives that Every Voice hopes to pursue in the state. But the fact that our smaller colleges and institutions don't have the same access is something that really frustrates me. So my recommendations for the people around me are to engage, take people seriously, listen to students when they articulate what they need to help them receive their education, which at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do as students. And making sure that we have the transparency and the resources for students to thrive during their time on campus. Yeah.
Absolutely. And 14,000 students just this year. That is outrageous. And it is outrageous to think that 14,000 of these students are going without knowing what resources are available to them, if there are any resources available in the first place, and while also not knowing if their institution is going to be, fully truthful about the state of what's going on their campus or what may be available to them, if they're even able to get to those places in the first place. So, I hear you, Emily, and I definitely echo that. And I guess to close out today, I would love to know, well, what does a future free from sexual violence look like to you?
Definitely. So this is something that I've spent a lot of time thinking about over my years at EVC. Um, I think that it is just so much more community driven, right? If we're able to talk about sexual violence, we know where to go when something or if something does occur. It just creates a general community that is more supportive and reliable and comforting in these times of severe stress. Um, to me, it's students feeling comfortable walking home from the library late at night. And it's going to class wearing whatever you feel the most beautiful in, regardless of what it looks like, because you know that you have the right to wear what you please and what you wear does not invite sexual violence. I wish that I had heard that when I was an undergrad. I think that it would have created a different space for me. And I'm just super fortunate to be a part of this work so that I can make that a reality for future generations of students.
That's awesome. Well, I actually have one real last question for you. Working in anti-sexual violence advocacy can be hard to hold emotionally. And in Every Voice, we often remind each other that you can't pour from an empty cup. So I'd love to know, Emily, in the past few years of your advocacy, what have you found that fills your cup?
Yes, I love this question. I feel like it wasn't until I graduated that I really sat down to think about like what is my mental health toolkit and what brings me peace and recharges my social battery. And those things for me are buying plants. I am shamelessly a plant lady. I really like doing hot yoga. That brings me a lot of peace. Meeting up with my friends. I live close by to a park, so we frequently will just meet up and go on a walk. There are so many things that are important and available for you to slow yourself down and, remind yourself that today maybe you had a call with the legislator, it didn't go the right way and you're super frustrated about it. There's going to be another call. There are other legislators to talk with. I've spent a lot of time working on reframing, I don't want to call them failures, but bumps in the road, and reminding myself that there is always a better outcome down the line because I and my coworkers are so passionate about this work. No little speed bump is going to stop us from getting to where we want to go.
Absolutely. Well, Emily, thank you so much for sitting and talking with me today. I love our conversations like this so much. I'd love to just open it up, and if there's anything else that you want to share, or any last thoughts, before we wrap up today.
I just feel like, especially with this radio show, I think it's so cool that you guys are featuring different movements and initiatives across New Mexico. And as an out of stater, I just want to say, don't forget how cool our state is. I think that New Mexico gets such a bad rep for just being, this poor little state in the Southwest or something. And I want you guys to remember that you can do really cool things. You are exceptional. And just because you live in a smaller state doesn't discount how impactful you can be.
That is so beautiful. So for our listeners today, remember that young people from New Mexico are exceptional and can do some really cool things. And again, Emily, thank you so much for your time this evening and for your thoughts around these important topics. For those who are listening today, please visit the Every Voice Coalition website at everyvoicecoalition.org. Follow us at Every Voice Coalition and Every Voice NM on Instagram, and also visit our friends on the Lab website at lablc.org. And again, if you or someone you love needs support in the aftermath of sexual violence, please consider visiting lapignon.org or calling their 24-hour crisis hotline at 575-526-3437. And for all the survivors listening today, remember that you are loved, you are heard, and you are supported. Youth voice and positive action can make a real difference now and in the future. Take care.